So our next one is our multi-sport facility upgrade at Karaka, and this of course is in the mighty Franklin, and warm welcome to our Chair, Angela Full-James. Welcome.
Bit of activity. Thank you very much. I don't know if we're going to get the 2 slides up, but I'm just going to keep ploughing ahead anyway. Really just want to reiterate that we're very pleased with where we've landed to move through to the detailed business case. We noted that it is also recommended for a scaled back solution. And the trust is also understanding of that, which is the Karaka Trust. What we would like to say, and I'll just go to the next slide. Is that the Karaka Trust has the ability to really partner on this project, and we really want to stress that. They've got the ability to also look at developing funding. They have expertise. Sorry, I'm finding it a little bit distracting.
I'll put my speaker on. We do have someone speaking. It'd be great. I know it's not an item maybe that might pertain to your community, but Angela's got the floor and it'd be great to listen to her. Thank you, Angela.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I was just saying the partnership we see as quite a key component to this project, and I'm not just talking about partners and just giving them updates and, you know, keeping them somewhat involved. We see that they could actually have quite an integral part of even providing assistance with the actual work itself, but particularly that funding, as I mentioned, which will enable them potentially to expand the project to what they see as the full vision of the project. We all know about the growth story. I'm not really going to dwell on that. It's really just to say that we're supportive, we're very pleased, we endorse or want to push the partnership, but also to say that in the last year that the current case has been put together, there has been change already, and we already have a new code that has joined, which is the Rugby League. So again, it's back to that partnership and working with the local board to make sure the information is most up to date when developing that detailed business case. And lastly, given those points, we just trust that the 30 million earmarked does not disappear until that detailed business case is completed, just in case we might request some tweaking. Thank you.
Any questions? That was pretty clear. Nope. Angela, I'll move the thanks to you. Is there Councillor Bill? Seconded. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. And just to note, Angela, if you are going to stay, do you want to speak to the Hanua just prior to the Hanua report? That'd be lovely. Sorry to keep you waiting, but we are just going to stay in the order it's in. Thank you for that. So our team again, and Councillor Fletcher will note your interest in this, and thank you for making that clear. Kataraina and team. Right, over to you.
As a brief introduction, the purpose of this paper is to seek approval for the indicative business case findings and the development of a detailed business case for a multi-sport facility and upgrades at Karaka Sports Park. This is the Franklin Local Board One Local Initiative, and it is based off a master plan for the park that was prepared by the Karaka Sports Park Trust. As part of the indicative business case process, 3 main options were assessed. They were option 1, no changes to services or facilities. Option 2, full implementation of the Karaka Sports Master Plan. And option 3, partial implementation of the Karaka Sports Master Plan. This paper recommends the development of a detailed business case based on option 3, partial implementation of the master plan. This option addresses identified needs, has a strong case for change, alignment with council plans and strategic objectives, and has a sound economic case. This option has also been endorsed by the Franklin Local Board at their June business meeting. Thank you.
Any questions? Any comments, local councillor?
Madam Chair, just to briefly say thank you for the team and the work. We all have wishes. We want to build everything better, faster now. It's great to see the Franklin Local Board being pragmatic as always and coming forward with a sensible solution going forward. 100% support. I'd love to move, Madam Chair.
You happy
Happy
to
to second
move?
that, Chair.
Second, councillor Newman. Any comments? Pretty straightforward. I'm going to put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Good. And we will move straight into the next Ollie, which is Chamberlain. Oh, sorry, I'm just. Okay, and I'd like to invite Peter Haynes to join us and address us. Warm welcome, Peter, Chair of Eden Albert Local Board.
Kia ora koutou. Thank you for the opportunity to come and speak. So just to remind people, the Chamberlain Park project has been master planned. It was thoroughly consulted on many times, and it simply attempts to provide for the future, if you like, for the children, the tamariki of the future. I'll just concentrate on a few points that have been raised, or a few issues. The first one is the sports fields. And it has been suggested that there's no problem here, really. The question was raised, what's the urgency? I'll start by giving you a real example. So, not so long ago, I took a phone call from the president of one of our larger sports clubs who was absolutely desperate. His sports club pays around $50,000 a year. It's a non-profit sports club, like most of them. $50,000 a year to use school sports fields, but his club was being outbid by touch rugby. You know, absolutely desperate. That's what's happening. We have clubs who can't increase their junior sport. So if you are worried about climate change, and I certainly am, they can't increase their junior sport, so people have to go further afield, sometimes to Mangere and Henderson and places where they have the sports field capacity. We have, along with the Waitemata Local Board, which, despite what you heard earlier, has enjoyed by far and away the largest growth of population, however you look at it, and is immediately adjacent. We have the biggest shortfall in sports field capacity in the Auckland region. That's what the independent studies commissioned by the council show. That's what the officers who allocate sports fields tell us. That's what the sports clubs and sports organisations tell us. All of them. And it's only going to get worse because we have rapid growth projected. Well, rapid growth is happening all across our area. Waitemata and Albert Eden are the most densely and second most densely populated areas in the region, and it is only going to get worse because we've recently had some upgrades cancelled, and the idea that we could simply, and this is what was suggested in a letter to you, that we could simply go and upgrade all the sports fields in our area. Firstly, we can't because they are in small parks right next to neighbours. We simply cannot do it because the planning rules will not allow us to do it. And secondly, we have spent countless hours, starting in 2011, looking at every single possibility in our local board area for sports fields upgrades. And there are no other possibilities that we haven't identified. When the AUP changed the rules, we jumped in, took the opportunity. We were the first local authority of any sort in the country to pilot hybrid sports fields. We were desperate. We said, never mind about, we want them now. So, to say there's no urgency, to suggest that there are easy solutions is really it's to misrepresent reality. And the people who are politically opposed to widening the uses of Chamberlain Park know this because they've been there. And if they continue to support this idea, they should reflect on the integrity of doing that. Likewise, the environment. So I agree with everything that Wendy Gray said. It's what she didn't say that left me absolutely aghast. One of the driving motivations to widen the uses of Chamberlain Park is environmental. This is the ecology solution. Not just, but especially restoring a very long section, 1 kilometre, of the Waititiko Miola Creek. Healthy Waters officers have spent years now perfecting the plans, and they go way beyond anything anybody else has suggested, because apart from anything else, they include restoring wetlands. So we are very, very keen to proceed so that we can enhance the environment, to build, if you like, to create that bird corridor. We were the first ones to use the term. And if you like, we can circulate the plans to everybody so you can see countless thousands of native trees are going to be planted. Many thousands. I don't know how they came to a figure of 1,000 so-called mature trees being taken out. Only a handful of protected trees were due to be taken out, and we will more than replace them. We will replace them many, many, many times over. That's part of the resource consenting process. And that's because we believe in trees, not just our Future Giants program and the countless thousands of trees that we're very proud to have planted in various parks. But you will know in this committee that one of the few local boards that comes along to advocate for tree protection is the Albert Eden Local Board. So quite why Wendy Gray didn't appear to be at all cognizant of our actual plans is beyond me. But I would just like to emphasise that our option is the ecology option. And there are a whole lot of other points that were made, an exquisite insight into how the area looked. Nobody actually knows how the area looked. What we do know is that over a couple of years, a lot of people spent a lot of time changing how the area looked into a golf course. But since then, what is now an 8-lane motorway in some places was put through, and further changes were made. So, representing it as some sort of pristine landscape is beyond misleading. And, an abundance of green space. Unitec is going to have up to 10,000 people living on it, which aren't at present. I don't know where these ideas that there are going to be lots of parks, because planning hasn't reached that stage. There is an obvious tension between the number of houses that are going to be put on it and the parks. What we do know is that there won't be enough park space for 10,000 people, and this site is simply just down the road, the other end of Sutherland Road, from the Unitec development. Okay, well, there are a lot of other points I could clarify or correct, but I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Peter. Your points are very, very well made, and there will be, I'm sure, a couple of questions which will give you a chance to amplify briefly. Member Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just really, if I may, clarity. The comment around none of us knew what it looked like, I take issue with. In effect, I'll refute that statement. Whilst I may not have been alive, it's not science to walk around the site and realise the damage that was done to construct the site all those years ago, when irony is we're talking about wetland restoration as an example of the comment made that I refute. Kia ora. Thank you.
Order. Councillor Walker.
I've got a couple of questions. One goes to ecology and enhancing the area. Is it not possible to have a golf course and to enhance the ecological network? I mean, when you play golf, water hazards are part of a course. Is it not possible to integrate that so you've got something that's pretty outstanding there?
If that was the only thing, yes, maybe.
Yeah.
But certainly you wouldn't get, I doubt whether you'd get the 18 holes. The wetland restoration would take out the 13th green and a lot of the surrounding part of the golf course. We think that it's an absolutely essential part of the ecological restoration. The golfers' proposals don't allow for wetland restoration.
And the other question I've got just goes to the option that's being put up in investing in the existing sports fields around Albert Eden. I think there's about 30 of them. Is it not possible to convert a number of those turfs to hybrid, and that doesn't impact on neighbours or the like? That could be done.
At the risk of repeating myself, we have spent countless hours looking at every possibility, and the answer, I can say without a shadow of doubt, is with the exception of Walker Park and Phyllis Reserve, where the governing body has taken away the funding to upgrade them, the answer is an absolute no. It is not possible. We've spent hours looking at this. But could I just say, even if every possibility was upgraded, we would still have the biggest shortfall in sports field capacity in the Auckland region. And when we get another 20,000 people over the next 10 to 20 years, we would just be phenomenally badly off. And if anybody wanted to play anywhere, they'd have to go to Henderson, which I don't think is sustainable. Thank you.
Just for clarity, Madam Chair,
We'll just stick up for Henderson.
my interest is to understand whether it's possible to look at hybrid turfs, and I would be interested in hearing from some officers around that
Why don't we,
as an option.
when we get to the item, Councillor, this is just questions for Peter, who's made his case very, very clearly. Councillor Darby.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Peter. Can you just go over the socialisation of this master plan with your community? I understand it was over quite a long period. Just paint a picture of the process. I want to get some confidence as to how well socialised it was. It was, the type of engagement that you undertook and what the response was.
Okay, well, partly we're constrained by the council processes for consultation and so on. So we consulted in the first instance over whether we should consult, and then we consulted over whether, and then we went back with options. So we've consulted, I've lost track of the number, I think it's about 5 times, and this was one of the points that was addressed in the judicial review, and along with every other part of the action that the golfers took, the judge ruled in our favour, which is to say that there was good consultation. It's very difficult to socialise it, particularly when you have a small group that are, making an awful lot of noise. You know, we use our Auckland and so on, but the channels for communication that are open and council leave.
Can I help here,
desired.
please? Because I'm
Yeah.
very aware that we've got a citizens engagement and insights group here, and they've given us great results in many areas. Because I just need to ask you, did you use them? Did you tap into them? And how did you use them to garner a good, solid community feedback? And support or otherwise. What can you tell us about the support or otherwise for that master plan?
Well, with the consultation, that was widely socialised, if you like. The last time we did it was a couple of years ago, and as always, the golfers rallied their forces. But a couple of weeks before the consultation closed, the very sports club I mentioned before heard that it was being said that we didn't have a problem with sports fields. So they got 650 people to submit within a week and said that, if we'd given them another week, it would have been 1,000. Our approach tends to be just to go out and talk to people. And we talk to a lot of people in Mount Albert, and there are a few golfers in Mount Albert. But, I've had to apologise in recent weeks for not being able to proceed with the new neighbourhood park and the playground and so on that people are hanging out for, because they know what facilities they have in the area. The impression I get is that local people actually are increasingly understanding that this is an excellent thing for not just the Mount Albert area, but, that certainly part of the isthmus. I guess we shall see.
Okay, lastly, Chair, if we proceeded with the detailed business case and it doesn't stack up to be financially viable or commercially affordable, will the board acknowledge that? I'm not suggesting that Maine will fail, I'm just saying that's what a detailed business case is.
But a detailed business case ought to actually, where there are assumptions being made, such as you're going to have to pay for fill, when in fact there will be people wanting to give it away, you should see those assumptions reflected in the business plan. We wanted a range of costings reflecting reality, and that is why the board received the indicative business plan. It wasn't because of the text. It was because of those figures not actually reflecting what we believe is likely to be the financial position. We weren't given the detailed figures, so we had no other option but to receive rather than endorse the report. But we certainly endorse the analysis and so on, other than the financial analysis, because we have some very, very expert officers who know a great deal about the area.
It's clear. Right. If we're going to try and make the substantive decision prior to lunchtime, I think we need to move on quickly. Quick question, Councillor Neal.
Peter, I'm a bit torn about this. So the we is the local board.
Sorry.
I'm a bit torn on this one. So the we you're referring to as the local board. You made some comments about the political debate around this, but just to confirm that this isn't a unanimous view of your board, is it? It's a bit of a
No, definitely not. No, it was politicised at a very early point and has remained so ever since. Yep.
So, all right. So just to confirm that it's a majority view of the board.
Totally.
On a matter which is contentious in your community, and we're just going to have to go through and make our assessment based on best judgment.
Well, I'm not sure how contentious it is within our community, actually. We shall see.
You should check out my inbox. It's just been overrun, but that's okay.
I'm sure, people swarm.
Okay. And finally, councillor Simpson.
Just very quickly, the politics of this is maybe going over my head a bit. It's not unanimous. Why not? What was the people who didn't like it?
I'm just trying to remember whether you were at the Finance and Performance Committee where one of the CNR members of the board attempted to come along and put the minority view. Yeah, right from the very outset, it has been politicised. So it is a political football, which you've seen quite a lot of in recent months, with things being launched down on the park without permission. It's what concerns me is that there is a lot of stuff here that's misleading at best, if not downright dishonest, and people are supporting that who ought to know better.
The report says that golf has gone down, the amount of golf played has gone down. Why, in your mind, does Auckland Golf and New Zealand Golf therefore not support your proposal?
Well, it was told, as it was put to me, Auckland Golf is necessarily very close to its clubs. So the New Zealand Golf position is an interesting one. The last time I talked to the person in New Zealand Golf with responsibility, he said, and I completely accept, it has always been the first preference of New Zealand Golf to have an improved facility, 18-hole facility at Chamberlain Park. That's fine. The local board certainly doesn't have the funding to do that, and I'm sure the governing body's not about to fund an improved 18-hole golf course at Chamberlain Park. But at the same time, and the word was used was accept, it accepted that the plans were actually in line with New Zealand Golf's strategy, which is taking a long-term view of golf, the oversupply of 18-hole golf courses in Auckland, and these facilities, the facilities in the master plan actually would improve the overall golf offer in Auckland because it would include a driving range, and we're hoping for a superior driving range. Most of the driving ranges available in Auckland are very, very ho-hum and mediocre. And if not learn-to-play facilities, certainly it seems to have changed a little, practice facilities for golfers. So it's about increasing the range of golf experiences that is on offer to golfers across Auckland. So and accommodating some people who aren't really well accommodated at the moment.
It's a very full answer, Peter. I'm going to call it time there. I'll move that we thank Peter Haynes for his presentation, seconded by Councillor Kathy Casey. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Peter. And we'll move directly on onto the item, which is item number 11. And again, Kataraina and team leading this. Councillor Casey signalled that she's happy to move the recommendations. So we'll just note that for the moment. Thank you both.
Thank you. This One Local initiative is based on the full implementation of the Chamberlain Park Master Plan. So we're seeking approval of the findings for the indicative business case and approval to proceed to developing a detailed business case for the redevelopment of Chamberlain Park. Along with assessing this option, we also assessed a second option, which is based on partial development of the implementation. That was phase 3 of the Chamberlain Park Master Plan. So our analysis showed that full implementation of the master plan best responds to community needs and aligns with the council's plans and strategies. There's a potentially economic case for change, and there are quantifiable community benefits to be distributed to a wider range of people. Thank you.
Happy to answer questions? Okay, let's go on to questions. Councillor Simpson.
Thank you. Look, I do know that Albert Eden is short of sports fields, but this is one heck of a very expensive sports field by sports field standards. So can you confirm, I mean, because of the lava field underneath Chamberlain Park as opposed to anywhere else, can you confirm that with the board chair's statement that sports fields cannot go in any other park in Albert Eden? Because, you know, if I'm looking to create sports fields and bangs for my bucks, popping them on top of a lava field probably isn't my first choice.
I did say except.
At a cost of 29.7 million, when they normally cost 4.2.
So just in response to that, so there's been a program over a number of years of investment in sports fields in Albert Eden, looking at how to increase capacity within the existing sports field areas. So just recently there's been hybrid turfs in Nixon Park. There's ongoing work putting in hybrid turfs in Fowles Park.
Sorry, can't hear.
Sorry, Fowles Park. Nixon Park has recently had hybrid turf increased in neon lights. Fowles Park has had one field updated, and there's another 2 investments going in there with hybrid pitch and lights. Phyllis Reserve has had a new pitch put in there. So there's a program looking across all the potential sites within Albert Eden, and a lot of investment's gone in there to lift the shortfall. But we are now running out of options within the existing open space network without a substantial change and the creation of new sports fields.
Follow up, if I may. So I've just got to get my head around this because we need space for kids to play sport. I get that. So golf aside, are you saying this site absolutely needs to be used for sport? I mean, sorry, not for play sport, for the development of sports fields. If you look over the isthmus and noting that, you know, ward by ward, we don't put an electric fence around them, are you saying absolutely the need absolutely dictates that that's what needs to happen, or is there some flexibility around that?
I think we need to step back to 2 things. First, this does have a master plan. That master plan was fully consulted in the public twice. That survived judicial review. The local board, like many other local boards, decided to make this its one local initiative. That was approved by the local boards. Then it was approved through the governing body, just as the other Ollies we have been considering here today. So in comparison to some of the one local initiatives that we have looked at today, we are saying there is a case in this area for sports fields, and we are saying that the economic case of delivering that at the moment is not the greatest, but actually if we go to a detailed business case, then a range of factors might occur that actually would make the cost benefit work out. So all one local initiatives, as you have pointed out today, were put up by local boards. This is what this local board's initiative was, and it was assessed like the other local initiatives. So there are cases that there are other things that can be done depending on how big you start to look out, sub-regionally, regionally.
Hi, Rob. So you mentioned that I think about 6 turfs have been converted to hybrid in Albert Eden. And there's 30 altogether, I think, roughly. So is there scope to do similar treatment to the other 24?
My understanding, without a detailed knowledge of the assessment, is that the fields that have been done or are in works are the ones that are feasible and possible and make sense. If there are existing pitches they'll be either sand carpet and sort of delivering the maximum feasible capacity. So it's all about capacity, and particularly when there's lots of smaller parks in Albert Eden area, lots of residential areas, so there's an inherent limit to how much use you can put in them because of the impact on neighbours and planning constraints. So while in theory you could build an artificial pitch and put lights around it, you can't get the capacity out of it because of the impacts on the residentials of people playing football out their front door or the back door till 10 o'clock at night. So there's a difference between what's physically possible to build and what is feasible to deliver.
I mean, I'm not suggesting that it's going to be a local reserve that's got lights and so on. I'm talking about the actual turf, because that's where you get the enhanced usage, and generally that's during daylight hours. So what's the scope to enhance the other 24? I mean, you've done Nixon, you've done Gribblehurst, you've done those. Equally, can we not do the others? And I wouldn't have thought that people playing sport in a reserve was going to impact on neighbours.
So just to clarify, the shortfall that we get across the city is generally in lit capacity during the week. So there's, as a general rule, there's not a great shortfall in playing field hours during the weekends or during the daylight hours, but it's training at night time is where there's a shortfall. And so that's where our investment tends to be into both the playing surface, so that the playing surface can take more hours and can accommodate that training, additional training, and the lights enable it to happen after 5 o'clock in the winter when the demand is. So our investment is generally to enable more hours, and that's nighttime hours.
And in respect of lights, with modern LED technology and the downlight, the absence of spill, is there a problem there?
It's certainly better now with much tighter light control, but it does have an impact on adjacent properties. While the lights aren't shining in their windows, there's a great big brightly lit sports field sitting over their back fence.
I thought this approach was generally what we're doing around all of Auckland. That is, we're endeavouring to maximise the use of the fields, so we upgrade the fields, we also enhance them with lights, and that's happening everywhere, isn't it?
Okay.
Okay.
Members,
Question.
Okay, last
then.
question.
So I'm familiar with the master plan for Chamberlain Park, and in particular the ecological aspect of the master plan, which is around enhancing certainly the vicinity of the creek or the stream that runs through there. Is it not possible to have some substantial ecological enhancement and still have a golf course?
I don't want to put our staff on the spot, because the question in hand, as we work our way through the OLLIs, is debating the OLLI or the One Local Board initiative that the boards have actually asked for, and I think we are straying right out of the field a little bit. I'll ask Kat if she wants to make any comment, and then I'll work out where to next. Kat.
Just in response to that, and it's a bit of a roundabout response, options were consulted for the master plan, and the master plan had a range of options in there that people got to comment on. That master plan then went through an approval process and then went through a really rigorous judicial review, where the council case came out very well in terms of options into the community and taking into account community feedback. That is the place where options around that sort of thing is best considered, now that it has been judicially reviewed. Generally, the master plan needs to be very, very careful about changing anything about its master plan. Otherwise, that could start another whole judicial review process. So staff with the local board have been very, very careful to have the one local initiative represent the judicially reviewed master plan. So if you can see that we're all being a bit cautious, you're right.
I mean, going back to my question, I'm really concerned about the ecological impacts, the landscape impacts. There's a lava field there, it's open space. We're talking about conversion, a massive conversion to a significant amount of space to artificial turf and flattening it. So for me, that's a quantum shift. So my question going back is it possible to make some ecological improvements around the vicinity of the stream for enhancement within the space available?
As part of the indicative business case, that's when some of the refinements will be picked up. I am going to now adjourn, and in keeping with the cricket themes lives that we are about to deal with New Zealand playing India, I am going to adjourn for half an hour. So this is like a rain-stopping play. If we don't get a wiggle on, we are going to have to apply the Duckworth-Lewis rule. Koro is doing the calculation as we speak. The run rate so far is well led by Councillor Walker, so I think the questions will need to be moderated and we will work out the remaining decisions. So, councillors, not being too light-hearted, I do think we don't make our best. I think we don't make our best decisions when we're a bit hungry and in need of toilet breaks. We're going to adjourn for half an hour and we'll be back into it. Thank you. just resume where we were. Thanks, Kat. And okay, team, so just to remind you where we were for the sake of continuity, we're on item number 11, redevelopment of Chamberlain Park. We just broke for lunch, so we've got the speaking order of Member Brown, Fletcher, Newman, Darby. And now, Kat, do you need anyone else with you? You're waiting for anyone else? She is, okay. And Kathy, but Kathy will have to be at the end because she will close the debate when she speaks. So why don't we go to Councillor Fletcher? I'm sorry, it's your turn. No, it's all good. Why don't we go to, no, we were going to go to Councillor Darby because he was next, or Member Brown. Who else would like to speak on this? Councillor Simpson.
So I've got a question. In the other Ollies, where we've done the indicative business case, the other ones that we've just talked about earlier today, we've always had a do nothing option. Why wasn't there a do nothing? Was there a do nothing option with this one? There was. Because someone just said, in something that someone handed out to us, this says there wasn't. Can you just point me to the place where it is, please?
So,
I've just read this handout.
yes, so if you look at option 1, which is partial redevelopment, that's the status quo.
Okay, so that is do nothing. Yeah. Okay.
Because decisions have been...
Good. Thank you.
Comfortable, Councillor Fletcher?
Thank you, ladies, and thank you for your availability to answer questions on this. Can you let me know why there's been this perception that Golfing New Zealand are supportive of it, the proposal? And it's been very important for me that there has been today, last night I understand, Golfing New Zealand circulated to all councillors and members of the IMSB the fact that they don't support this proposal. Can you just run that by me?
Through the chair, we only received that, well, we didn't receive that letter, so we've heard about that this morning. I would need to go back and check the submissions for the original master plan to see if they made one and what they said. I can't remember off the top of my head for this specific case, although I note the chair of the local board has a better memory than I do. I do know that they have been supportive overall of the golf investment plan, of which Albert Eden has figured as an example, but I would actually, since they've written a letter, I would have to go and check the submissions report from the master plan. So sorry, we didn't know about this letter until we heard this morning.
No, well, I mean, this has been a proposal for quite some time. In fact, it predates the current council. I was chair of Parks at the time that we decided that we would go out with a comprehensive overview on golfing. So I understand the controversy, and one of the difficulties is where you have, as I said before, you have a local board boundary, but then you also have these other imperatives which relate to facilities that are used region-wide, which takes me to perhaps the next question I've got, and it's been traversed in some way, but that's just in terms of the shortfall in the field hours. Now, you've given your answers, and you, in no way do I want to subject you to any interrogation on this in terms of, but I would like to better understand from a value for money perspective, if we are going to ensure that we are giving the investment the right weighting to ensure that we can have more recreation and sporting opportunity for young people growing up in central Auckland. Can you assure me that this represents the best value for money?
So I cannot reassure you that this represents the best value for money because none of these were done comparatively. What we have done is shown you a cost-benefit analysis and how this specific proposal goes against that methodology. And you will see on page 99 in the diagram that over that time period we are short of kind of the break-even ratio between costs and benefits. And you'll see that in the report, officers have explained that it is quite close, and that because it is close, that it is, we've been advised by experts that in the business case where you get right into more detail about the actual design and therefore you start to get more definitive costs, so this is an indicative case that's based on indicative costs, that could well change that, but that could be positively or negatively, we just don't know. So because it is so close, it doesn't seem very pragmatic to turn it down at this point of the process. It is worth going to the next stage and doing more of the proving, and then that case will show where we're at. But none of the indicative business cases have been compared against each other or other things, just purely the costs and benefits for that proposal. Unless there isn't, another option in the paper and that's been compared against those.
So just taking it back, I would really appreciate, because I remember the last time that this came before this committee, Paul Marriott-Lloyd confirmed to me that Golfing New Zealand supported this proposal. So I don't want to undermine anyone, but I would actually like to see in writing the correspondence that confirms why he gave us that opinion and why they are withdrawing, or indeed, according to them, they never gave that support. So it's really hard where you've got conflicting advice, and what we're really trying to do is make sure the integrity of the policy advice so we can make the right decisions here. Finally, in terms of the ecological considerations that were put forward by the Society for the Protection of Western Springs, can you assure me that you have undertaken the most rigorous ecological survey on this area? Because when we're trying in a business case sense, you can put up from a sporting perspective, but are you giving sufficient consideration? You know, one of the value judgments as councillors and members of the IMSB that we have to make is not just the sporting lens, but we need to take into account all issues when we're making decisions on things. So can you give me an understanding on whether you believe that you have undertaken the most comprehensive ecological survey of this, and also what weighting you gave to it in your business case?
So through the chair, we can confirm there was not what you would consider to be a comprehensive ecological view of this. This is a straight, here is the one local board initiative, which does include ecological and biodiversity elements. Those ecological and biodiversity elements that are part of the proposal, the costs for those have been assessed. However, for many environmental and community benefits, it is very difficult to articulate the benefits. So while the costs of the proposal have been assessed, the benefits attributed to those have been difficult and are not part of the cost-benefit analysis. So no, not in the ways you are talking about. It has been more about a whole range of uses, both community, sport, ecological. So the master plan is a balance of a range of those things.
So when would you normally, in terms of best practice, when would you normally see that kind of ecological survey being undertaken?
So generally, proposals don't, I think, have the kind of ecological survey you're thinking about undertaken, but I don't do the operation, so here's...
So we would look as, if this was to move through into the next phase of both detailed business case and starting to explore the design in more detail, that would be one of the suite of base informations we use to inform that design process. So it would be alongside understanding better the geotechnical and the water system. There's a lot of base information that informs design.
And would there be consideration given in terms of the importance of the lava issues? I don't want to labour this too much, but one of the very important and unique characteristics of Auckland is actually the volcanic cone field that we have. And I know from work that's been done along Withiel Drive in the past and the lava forest that we have there, there's been a huge amount of work undertaken by council officers on the strategic importance of that. It just seems a little odd that there's been no referencing of that in the report that's come to us today.
So through the chair, it is one of the concerns of the proposal, and it is one of those things that the next stage of detail when you have to start. So generally we don't start getting in all the experts because there are quite a lot and it can be quite expensive until we know that there's approval at this stage to go to that stage, and that's where a lot of the concerns everyone has, we start working with experts and start working the whole site to understand them. So that would be in the next stage. So it is a concern about how much that part of this proposal does cost, and it is the part that makes the cost-benefit analysis not so great.
Thank you for that. I've got other questions, but I'm aware of time restraints and that others will want to. I may come back if I may.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of points. Katarani, you said earlier about the detailed business case as a place to prove further the business case, but maybe the converse is also true, that it's also a place to disprove. That, you need to look at the benefits and the disbenefits, financial, business, of the proposal. Is that what we can expect in a detailed business case?
Yes, so we'll be looking at, as you said, the benefits and the disbenefits, and understanding those more as you understand more detail. And that will come back to you. Again, there is a decision to be made at some point. Does it make sense to continue to invest in this project, knowing what we now know about it? That's very much what the detailed business case will provide.
Okay, thank you. One other point, clarification. If we just scroll up on Councillor Casey's motion there, I think it is the recommendation C, Roman I. It talks there, and it's in the body of the report as well, about a 3.6 hectare neighbourhood park. I'm looking at our parks acquisition policy, and it doesn't refer to a neighbourhood park as being anywhere near that area. That area is a suburban park. Can I just get some clarification as to what that is? Because doesn't appear to be consistent with what I'm reading in our own policy. And I think the policy is on page 30 of our policy.
So the components of the detailed business case, or full implementation of the master plan, is actually included in the master plan. So the neighbourhood park is noted in there.
Yeah, look, I'm not being clever here. I'm just wanting some clarification because in the policy, a 3.6 hectare area is a suburb park. So a suburb park is 3 to 5 hectares, and then you go to destination parks. Less than the suburb park is your neighbourhood, and that is a dramatically decreased area. So I'm just, have we got the right word there? Is it a neighbourhood park or is it a
So to clarify,
suburb park?
a neighbourhood park is 3,000 metres square. I think we've just reflected the one local initiative words. Either we've reflected that correctly or not, I'll need to check, but I think we've tried to use the one local initiative words, but I can check that. You're right, a suburb or destination park is the 3 to 5. So we can clarify that either we've reflected the word used in the One Local initiative, or us as staff have inserted the wrong word.
Yeah, I'll let you work.
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to follow a similar theme, but around the heritage layer, insofar as like the master plan, and I've just had a quick reread of it over lunch. The genesis of the plan is like pretty much captured in the report, right? But the missing bits, even in the master plan, could actually be the bits that trip over the whole momentum at some future point. So I acknowledge the legal comments from officials, but officials should know that council's not exempt from judicial scrutiny, say in the secondary layer, i.e. consent applications for developments of sorts, right? So in a similar theme to ecology, because I can't actually see any heritage values placed in the plan or even in the reports. There's talk around trees. We've had a comment earlier about nobody knows what it looked like before, which I refute. So at what point will we be able to cite these things? I've got a couple of elements, Madam Chair. The other element I have too is the genesis of the Māori section of this report. Because that omits heritage as of something of importance and significance to Māori. In fact, all it talks about is the statistics of Māori in the catchment area and how much or less they play golf. Can I just tell us, on behalf of all Māori of Auckland, that that's actually not the importance that Māori will place on this site at all. The importance Māori will place on this site is how much or less heritage and ecological values exist within that site, and that includes what has already been compromised to construct the site. You see, you can't compromise heritage of yesteryear for the purposes of this activity, notwithstanding the scale of it and size, and then years later come back and want to re-compromise it because of a new feeling of what the site can do. And we're already looking at mitigation forethought around, oh, hey, let's fix the stream because to make us feel better. The question I have around that is, why aren't we just fixing the bloody stream anyway? So it looks like, oh, we won't do anything until we get this bit done. So we always come last, eh? Heritage and ecology is like last. Yet I have to tell us, those two elements could be the two judicial elements that could flip your momentum in the future. So is there a heritage layer? If not, is it coming in the second stage? Because that's what I heard about the ecological layer. Kia ora.
Can I just, while you just think about the answer, can I suggest that there's quite a lot of confusion, and including in my mind, we talk about indicative business cases, and then we talk about the development of the next level business case. And I think this is what's confusing us. We haven't done that work, and as I think Kataraina explained, that work is really expensive and detailed, and we need to sign off that the ecological, historical, all of those layers are done. And that's my understanding is what will happen in the detailed business case. If we weren't to proceed to detailed business case, that work wouldn't be done. So can we maybe just remind people of what happens at that detailed business case?
Madam Chair, thank you. I understand that. I got the rākau. I just want to say that I don't see these two elements as being of any significant cost to have in the front, given what I'm suggesting, is why do all of this other stuff if you're still left in the detail, and that's where the devil is, and we're left at the statutory space to have a debate, whereas it should be included, in our view, right up the front.
So take your point, and we have heard that. On the master plan part of your question, sorry, it was undertaken a while ago and Rob and I worked on that. I can't specifically remember at the moment what came through around Māori and heritage aspects of that part of the process. I am happy to go back and look at those and send them to you. I just can't, we would have looked at them, I just can't remember what the result is.
I understood that from what I've read at
yeah.
lunchtime and
So
earlier.
we can go back for that part.
That's certainly a view that Ngāti Whātua Ōrākei attended.
I just can't remember the submissions from then. So we would need to just look at those and re-give them back. And then, just as per the chair said, those layers will go on in the local board's development proposal through the business case.
My point follows on very nicely from James's point, and that issue is around why would we advance to a business case that is effectively already predicated around putting in some artificial turfs and massively changing this landscape, our heritage, without first covering off heritage, landscape, ecology, issues around climate change, sustainability, our urban forest strategy, our water strategy, the incredibly poor benefit cost that we've got here. It ain't good. And the opportunity cost if we had spent the money elsewhere. So I've got a huge concern around why we're not addressing those things first. Why is that?
Just to also clarify, we can provide you back with the master plan information, because a lot of the things that you are talking about are things that have come up through submissions and through the master plan. So we don't actually have all that information here today. So at least let us pass that information back on to you so you can actually see from that point what the master plan process was. It was quite robust and detailed, and there was a lot of public consultation.
Okay.
We are at the point now, like with all of the One Local initiatives that you have seen today, where this one has a master plan, they would like to implement it, they've put their One Local initiative up, we have assessed it, and this is what it's come back as.
So I've got a question about the information that's in the report, and especially as it goes to the context around the number of people playing golf at this course. My understanding is that this is, in terms of participation, that it's in the top 10% of golf courses in the world in terms of rounds of golf played. And as a consequence, as a venue, it's incredibly important in terms of participation by a whole range of Aucklanders. Is that the case?
So just to clarify, staff have not been relitigating the local board decisions around what was in their master plan. We have not compared golf rounds for Chamberlain Park for this master plan with international golf round numbers. So we haven't done that in this process.
So just within an Auckland context, would this be the most accessible golf course in Auckland, perhaps in New Zealand, in respect of the catchment of population that it draws on and can arrive at it as sustainably as possible?
So, Councillor, I can see the questions, and we are going a little bit round in circles now. Remember...
Well, I'm not going round in circles. I'm pretty focused here.
I think we're covering the same ground, and we do have a huge... We actually need to get on to the actual debate. The issue is, as all the One Local initiatives, we've accepted the One Local initiative from the local board. This is the local board's decision, as it was with Upper Harbour, as it will be with Manurewa. We are now saying, do we wish to proceed or not to proceed to indicative business case, to substantial, sorry, whatever the word is, to the detailed business case, where many of the issues are fleshed out. People have a choice to simply vote against this, or not, but we are digging back into why did the board come up with this, and that's already been agreed, and the master planning has been done accordingly. So I guess we need to find a line in the sand above which we question. I'll let you just cogitate on that for a moment. I've got Councillor Simpson, Newman, and you're then welcome to speak. I've got Councillor Simpson, Newman, Stewart and Cooper. So we're still on questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Look, bearing in mind this is very political, can you tell me how long it takes to do a detailed business case?
We'd be looking, if we kick this off, I can't recall a timeline, but it's certainly to be well into next year, towards the latter half of next year, before we were getting some resolution on that.
My question is that, locally, the people concerned will live or die on this project. Obviously, it's got, for and against and, blah, 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 politically. But should that change, I wouldn't want to sort of invest $1 million now if it ends up by all of a sudden not sort of... So, well, they are, but everybody else's is unanimous, so this one isn't. So that's why I was kind of asking, is there anything to say you could start a business case in, say, November? Is that possible? I'm just asking the time. I'm just asking the time.
You can make whatever resolution you like in terms of when any business case might start.
My second follow-up to that is when I asked the question for the do-nothing option, which has been a do-nothing option for all the other indicative business cases, is it true that the status quo, which was quoted as the do-nothing option, actually has a $6 million spend in stage 3, and it's not actually a complete do-nothing?
So you'll note in the report it does not say do nothing, it says status quo.
I asked a question earlier, why didn't it have a do nothing option, as the others all did? I was told the answer to that question was...
Because we have a status quo, and the status quo does include some things. It's on page...
But well, the point I was making is in all the others, do nothing is do nothing. This is not do nothing.
There's not a single report with a do-nothing option. There are status quo options.
Okay, thank you.
So for some, that would be less than the status quo.
So just to check, so the status quo still involves some expenditure, which is what would have been planned anyway. Okay. Just check, so we'll just make sure we're still just on questions. Councillor Newman is comments. Councillor Stewart, question or comment? Question.
Thank you. So my question is, you've been asked, there's quite a few questions that have been asked and you haven't had the answers, and you did say you would come back with those answers. So today we haven't actually got the answers to those questions, so I don't think anybody around this table really should be voting on this today, because we haven't got the answers to a handful of questions that have been asked today.
Respectfully, through the chair, most of the things we've said we've passed on, will pass on, have happened in 2014, 2015. So they were through the master plan process. And so many of those things we just can't recall sitting here today. So those things we are happy to pass on, but it just shows that there have been quite a long series of decision making up to this point. Those decisions are made. This is the part around the indicative business case. So, for example, if we were in a discussion about the golf investment plan, then we would have all the information in front of us which looks at different golf courses across the region. This piece of work implements our decision already made about the use of Chamberlain Park. So it was that decision that considered many of those factors around its future use. This is the proving part of it. So sorry, I just don't have all the master plan information here today.
That's why I think perhaps it would probably be better to wait until as Councillor Simpson has suggested, wait until after November and, yeah, thank you.
Let's just remember we've already done the master plan. We've signed it off and it's been completed. We just don't have it here today to discuss. Any other questions before we go? Okay, I'm checking. So Councillor Cooper, you a question or comment? Councillor Cooper. Yep.
My question was, with the huge increase in population in the Waitemata local board area, would it be envisaged that those people would be accessing this area? Because I'm just wondering, where else do they go? In terms of if this was developed as sports fields, would it be envisaged that those people would be accessing those grounds as well, given the lack in the central city?
Yes.
Thank you. So, Councillor Fletcher, question or comment?
A question. So setting aside the sub-regional issues, which are really complicated when it comes to central Auckland, and taking into account the fact that we are probably in a learning mode with regards Ollie's, the difficulty I have and the question that I want to pose to you is that we require a lot from our communities by way of response, and what we are talking about today is if we go forward and how much it's going to cost to do the proper cost-benefit analysis. Is there something, if we were to do this again, taking into account Member Brown, his concerns that on heritage, on ecological, should these be things that we think of from the very beginning? Because there's a large cost, whether we go to judicial review or not. The cost of participation by communities is becoming increasingly high. Do you see that as something that you would do differently if you were going forward into the future?
Just speaking generally in terms of the indicative business case, not the master plan, which was
Yes,
a
I
very
understand.
separate approach and did look at sub-regional aspects. Usually indicative business cases are by nature desktop. They are often just going, have we got enough of a gap, enough alignment to certain things to then dive into what is normally quite a very detailed, semi-expensive, robust process at the business end. So generally, we wouldn't be getting into many of the layers that you are talking about, apart from in the cost-benefit analysis where we have got information about both costs and social ecological benefits that can be used robustly enough. They are used in that context. But generally, even for the future, I would say it's probably not the best place to always do that work.
Thank you. And just finally, in following on from Councillor Stewart, the question I posed to you before I think is actually quite relevant to whether we proceed or not today, and that is what I perceive as the confusion or misinformation that we have been given in the past on whether Golfing New Zealand support this or not. And I think you need to be able to, before we actually vote on this today, if it's possible. Is Paul Marriott-Lloyd here?
Sorry, Paul Marriott-Lloyd's in hospital, so he's not able to attend this meeting. I think that it does go back to the master plan again. So all the public debates about this, the appeals, the submissions, they were all the decisions around should Chamberlain Park stay as it is or should it change to something else. Once that decision was made and then upheld, this became more about the doability and the strategic need. It doesn't really relitigate that decision. So I would say respectfully that golf question was more a question for the master plan stage.
Respectfully, I would say that if that was not pertinent, then that should have been put to us last time rather than presented as support for the master plan. So I'm feeling a little bit confused about where we are going on this, but I'll leave that.
I think, people should feel as comfortable as possible with the decisions that are being made. However, the decisions are ours. They're not Golf New Zealand, and the decision is ours, given the huge amount of work that's gone into this. Councillor Filipaina, question?
Yeah, definitely, because I'm not confused. There was a comment made earlier that the vote to bring this to this committee was 5-3 from the local board. Can I just confirm that it was a majority and it was 5-3? It was? Thank you.
So if we've worked our way through the questions, we'll go to Councillor Kathy Casey. Would you like to speak to the recommendation, Councillor
Love to speak to the
Casey? And then you'll
recommendations.
have the right to close the debate at the end.
So the redevelopment of Chamberlain Park is the Albert Eden Local Board's OLI. One local initiative. As ward councillor, I've sat in on numerous presentations at the local board meetings on this, as have you all. It's not the first time, it's not the second time, it's not even the third time. I would hate to hazard a guess at how many times we have heard from the Albert Eden Local Board about their OLI. What you haven't heard from me is any public comment. Now is the time to make that comment. I am the ward councillor and I support this proposal, and I'm moving the resolutions today. But first, a personal disclosure. I'm Scottish. I know that none of you knew that, but I'm also a golfer. And in Scotland, I played off 12, pretty good for a woman, silver.
Very good.
When I came to New Zealand, I joined Miramar Golf Course. I hit a good shot round there too. And in recent years, the only golf I have played has been at Chamberlain Park. It's a good golf course. It's a challenging golf course. The competitions played there were between the elected members of the Auckland City Council and its staff for the Coakley Cup, which has been played for annually since 1940 something. It's sitting on my mantelpiece because the elected members won the last competition. So that's my disclosure. It's a good course, but is that the best use for Auckland? And I think it was James Brown who asked the question. That's what we're deciding today. I can absolutely understand the loyalty of Jeff, and the players and the members at Chamberlain Park. I can absolutely understand it. This is the first decision we've had to make about making use of a golf course that's owned by the council. What the local board intends to do with it is not to kill golf, but to reduce the whole number to 9. Also to have a learning area and a driving range. Golf will not be dead at Chamberlain Park. But what will happen at Chamberlain is the local community will have a fantastic new outdoor amenity. And I don't know if you went to, or you've been to Te Awaranga, I was there on the weekend to see the redevelopment of Oakley Creek. Absolutely fabulous through Walmsley Park and Underwood Park. Give us some in Albert Eden. That's part of this. But it's not just the creek. It's about opening up the park for multi-use. That's what we've been saying around these tables for months. It's not just for one sport. Multi-sport, multi-use. And you've seen the list. Peter's gone over and over it numerous times. Cycling, walking. Sports fields, absolutely nowhere else to go in the ward. How many times have you heard that from Peter Haynes and the board? Nowhere else to go unless we build new ones. That's what's going to happen at Chamberlain Park. Sports fields will be multi-use. This is for the local residents. Local residents have said that's exactly what they want. The consultation process was challenged, and again, right, I do understand, I understand the challenge. But the court said that the Albert Eden Local Board had done their consultation properly. So you can unpick it as you might want to today, but this has gone through a thorough master planning process. This is the end of a process and the beginning of the next phase of it. All the issues that have been raised will be ironed out as we go through the next phase, which is to actually do something. So James, your question was right. We need to look at the best use of this space for the future of the whole Auckland region. Is it an 18-hole golf course? Sadly, no, it's not. But let it be a 9-hole course, a learning area, a driving range, and a multi-use park that's available to all the residents of Albert Eden. Thank you. Bring it on. Please support it. Please support it. That I can't think of any good reason not to be quite frank.
So, Councillor Newman.
Thank you. So in my ward, I've tallied it up, we've lost 28 holes. We lost the Manukau Golf Course, that's 18 holes, gone. Papakura Golf Course, 9 holes, gone. We lost the 10th hole at Wattle Downs, gone. 28 holes, golf courses, gone. We're not getting it back. I voted against the sports investment plan this morning because of the concern about threshold. If ever you need the sports investment plan to drive an inquiry into a business case, it would be for something like this. I want to record that I will vote against A, Roman numeral 6 and Roman numeral 7, and that I will be voting against B. I think that the archaeological heritage values need to be addressed, and I would like to have understood what Golf New Zealand's view around this is. I don't actually want to oppose the development of a detailed business case, Madam Chair, simply because I want to keep good faith with the local boards on the Ollies. I have to say that I think that the proposal here is wrong, but I do want to keep good faith with the Ollies. I think that's important. But I cannot see how a detailed business case actually is going to make this stack up. Certainly on the economics, on the budgetary considerations, it is an eye-watering spend, I think, and I'm just not sure that necessarily represents value for money, but value for money doesn't necessarily have to be the criteria for every decision that is taken. The only other thing that I will say, Chair, is that I have been a bit disappointed with the discussion around the whole sort of the politicisation of this. I mean, people are entitled to their truth and they are entitled to their view around this, and people are entitled to have those views heard. We have heard about the position that was taken by the board, but there are different views around that board table, and there are clearly different views in the community and the wider community, and probably around this table. But Chair, I would ask that my votes definitely be recorded against on those parts that I have identified. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. That's clear. Councillor Hills.
Thank you, Chair. And it's just a quick thing for me. We asked local boards to bring their one local initiative to us in good faith and said, what is your biggest priority? I thank the councillors around this table for supporting both Kaipatiki and Devonport Takapuna's one local initiatives that we've got over the line, which is fantastic. This is another one. This is the same reason why I pushed for the Upper Harbour one and why I'll push for what the Manurewa local board are asking for soon, because we asked the local boards for their main priority, and this business case, and we'll come back to the committee on what can be done, can't be done, and all the other details. But I think it's up to us to at least support the local board's top priorities in their areas to this stage, at least to see what what we can actually do if that's their priority. Otherwise, not sure why we ask them for their top priority. So that's for me.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Wayne Walker.
So I'm going to be voting against this. Having said that, as much and all as voting against it, I've got a lot of sympathy for the local board. I certainly agree with them around the provision of more sports field capacities. Great. Agree with them around the need for ecological values. Frankly, I think we need to go further and try to preserve this landscape, because the volcanic landscape of Auckland is one of the most important parts of our heritage everywhere, and we're losing it everywhere, and councillors know that. Since the master plan process was last dealt with back in 2015, things have changed. I think we're more acutely aware of heritage. We've got an urban forest strategy. We've got a water strategy. We've got a climate emergency. And in that respect, just appreciate, in respect of this golf course, that there is a huge amount of sunk carbon in the creation of this sporting facility. And one of the things generally that I find very disturbing is we are taking sunk carbon that we have invested in a range of sporting facilities around Auckland, and we're destroying it without any carbon accounting whatever, sometimes for reasons that are very dubious. So that's really important to me. It's important to me in the respect that this is probably the most accessible golf course in Auckland, if not New Zealand, for a huge catchment of people, and those people are people that are able to engage in this course without spending a lot of money. It's not an elite course, it's a course for anyone and everyone, all ages. And that part of the heritage of Auckland as it goes to this course is incredibly important. It's been mentioned to me that this is among the top 10% of courses in the world by rounds. So it is not just a local asset, it is an important Auckland and New Zealand asset. I went to the local government conference, went on one of the tours, this is just a couple of days ago, and I visited a sanctuary called Zealandia. We have got wildlife, flora and fauna in the centre of Auckland. You've got walkways going through. That sort of thing can be incorporated here. If ever there was a place where you could also have a wildlife sanctuary, because golf courses essentially are fenced in part, then this is it. So there's a marvellous vision that we could have for this place that, in my opinion, doesn't resonate with two big artificial turfs. I would be spending that money far more wisely, and we're talking about a huge sum of money here and a very low benefit cost, on improving the local fields, the neighbourhood reserves all around the vicinity, and the officers know that they can do that very, very cheaply.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Watson.
Thank you. I'll be brief, and I think there's been two very good speeches there from Councillor Newman and Councillor Walker, which probably between the two of them sum up my view. I'm really uncomfortable with this, with the notion of essentially carving up one of our remaining public golf courses to provide sports fields. To me, that seems fundamentally flawed. Having said that, I accept the view that's been put up by the board chair, Peter Haynes, in terms of the need. If I'd been on that local board, I'd have been one of the three people voting against it, because I would not be sacrificing a golf course like this to provide two sports fields. However, and as has been remarked, this is the local board's Ollie's. This has been in train for some time. I'm assuming, and in fact I'm more than assuming,
I'm fairly confident will be the case, that there will be a final arbiter in this controversial issue, and that will be the local elections that come up that will perhaps make the decision for everyone, given what's being proposed and the fact that it is controversial and has really galvanised people into action. Quite rightly, there's a lot at stake here. So, setting aside my personal view, which is one that would not support it, I find that that's trumped by the notion that, you know, in due regard for the process and what has happened with my own Upper Harbour local board, that proceeding this to the business case is, you know, the least offensive of the options that are up at this stage. It will come back for a final decision that will be a lot more comprehensive. I'll be honest, I suspect, like a lot of councillors in here, I don't really know enough about this, if I'm going to be honest. I've followed it in the papers and had the odd workshop here, but I don't know as much as the people who are engaged in this, as indeed will a lot of the people around here. So I'm hoping that everything will be flushed out in the next process, and a more informed long-term view can be made at that point, and that might be a different decision than the one today.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm just keeping an eye on speakers for and against, because I will be a little bit tough if we get to the 3 for, 3 against, I think we'll put it. I've got Simpson, Darby, Brown, Lee, possibly Clough.
Chair, I'd actually asked a question but reserved my right to speak earlier, and I was quite a way up
didn't put you on the, we'll just put everyone on. But no, Councillor Cooper, you did. So I just need to do a little sense check. So everyone is speaking, and I'm going to let this conversation go. These are difficult, as the next one will be when we come to Takapuna, but we are working on a reserve date, because I don't think we're going to finish the meeting by 7, and there are people who've got meetings to go to. So, you know, you may well get irritated with me as chair whether I A, let everyone speak, or B, don't let you speak enough, but this is simply how the process needs to be. Councillor, we'll go to Councillor Cooper, because she did reserve her right to speak.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've seconded this because this is about going to a business case. You know, this will test what can and can't be done. And I really do think that, you know, once you put in the environment issues, maybe heritage issues, all of those things, we'll start to see whether this stacks up or not. You've got to let it go forward, because how can you make a decision if you don't exactly know what needs to be done and what it's going to cost? And I think it's a bit disingenuous of any of us as councillors elected to make decisions for the whole region to back your own stuff and then don't back the other stuff. When I look at the Upper Harbour decision, and I look at that land, that's rural farmland. Happy to carve that one up with a stream going through it and stick some artificial wooden building on it. But, you know, we've got to get a bit real here, that we have a huge need for sports facilities and sports fields, and we can't get away from that because our city is growing exponentially. And we all know the issues around, especially young people needing to be able to get out. They can't be on their devices all the time. We've seen the very poor outcomes for especially young men. It is frying their brains, and they need to be out doing sports. It's too late for us. But I think that, you know, and even though it says it's got a high cost-benefit ratio, the community benefit is what it's all about. And there are a lot of projects we've done in this region that might not stack up to the cost-benefit ratio, but the community benefit is actually priceless. And that's what we're here for. We're here for the future. We're not building this for us, we're building this for our kids and other people that will use it after we go along. And you know, this is a really hard call, because you can see the golf thing, but we also know when we did the golf study, there's a lot of golf courses in Auckland, and the reality is you can't do everything for free. That's just the reality of life. Nothing is free. So for some people, if they really, really love their golf, maybe that's the choice you make. I'm going to go and join a golf club, and it doesn't have to be a super expensive one. So, and there's still that ability for a 9-hole golf course, if we even get to that. But let's do the business case. I support Councillor Casey. She knows her area, but she also understands her role as a regional councillor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper.
Okay, I support the local board putting up this as their Ollie. What concerns me, the difference between this Ollie and every other Ollie, is it wasn't unanimous. Councillor Filipina said it was 5-3. Two of the five aren't standing again. So this, for me, has a little bit of a political element in it. I'm going to support the resolutions, but I'm also going to put up an amendment which Councillor Stewart has agreed to second. And that amendment would be a C3, and that is that the detailed business case wouldn't start until November. So if there was political change, then we haven't gone ahead and started something that potentially doesn't have any political. So that's an amendment, Madam Chair. Thank you.
We'll put that separately, Councillor, if you've given us the wording for that. Councillor Darby. Okay, you're all good. Member Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can I go to the recommendations in this point 2? And it's a demographic statement. And I don't actually understand why it's in the recommendations, because to me it looks like the Europeans are becoming a minority. The Asians are becoming a majority. And maybe the Asians don't play golf like us. So let's change course and do what... So I just want to know why a demographic statement of those two ethnicities are in this recommendation, given that those are two ethnicities of 200 plus that I would argue make up the catchment population. So can someone explain why that particular point is in there?
So you're drawing on the point about that we've highlighted the numbers of Europeans and Asian. I think it was because those two figures stood out the most. That was why. And we've talked in this report about changing diversity.
I just raised this, how I think about like in 5 or even 100 years. And some poor child reads that and goes to themselves at that future point, oh, this is what happened to Chamberlain Park. Maybe this was the reason, right? So I just don't get why it's in the recommendations. Insofar as two ethnicities of 200 warrant a bullet point because of their demographic statistics. But to me it reads, like I said earlier, without any disrespect or intent, it reads to me, at least to my kids, oh, like I just said earlier, I don't want to repeat it, but it's just how it feels when you read it. So that was one. Second, there was comments around the indicative increase on the geotechnical element, right? And I'm going back to my earlier element. How come indicatively we can add $7 million in a study, think? And I'm going back to the fundamentals of, well, might only be 100 grand, but where's the heritage plan? Because I'm sorry, I got great difficulty out of supporting it, not disrespecting the local board. I'm not an elected member. I'm not reliant on the public's vote. I'm only focused on what the public need in 100 years, and it needs its environment, regardless of how it's put up. So I'm going to hold strong to those principles of heritage and ecology, because without that, doesn't matter what sport we want to play or what field you want, there won't be any.
Councillor Lee.
Thank you. First of all, I want to commend the drive and vision of Albert Eden Local Board Chair Peter Haynes and his colleagues, or the majority of his colleagues, and also commend the loyalty and pride Peter has in particular in the Albert Eden Local Board and all that it stands for, and the good work he has achieved over the last 9 years of the Super City. But of course the Albert Eden Board, like this particular entity, the Auckland Council, hasn't been around forever. And the times that this item has been before this committee, I have questioned the basic assumption that local board boundaries loom large, if at all, in the minds of people who play sport. It's an administrative construct, not really a geographic construct as such, and it has a heritage of 9 years. Most people, when they go to play sport, they're not particularly concerned whether they're playing at Fowles Park, within the local board boundary, or at Western Springs, or indeed at Cornwall Park or other parks. Their main concern is winning and performing well, not whether they're crossing over some artificial border which may loom large in the minds of us within the Super City, but not necessarily among the people of Auckland. I am, like Member Brown, also puzzled by the use of demographics, the ethnic question, race question essentially, which states that the proportion of European New Zealanders compared to Asians, and of course Asians is not just one ethnic group, I guess it's dozens of people, but the proportions will change. They're changing day by day, of course, but not necessarily the amount of people. It looks to me as if there's going to be more people of every ethnic group, and of course more people means more demands for infrastructure and so on. So that is a major problem, which ironically in some ways we, the Auckland Council and the governments of the day, appear to encourage more and more growth. Now we're dealing with the costs of, and in this particular case, to try and shoehorn in to the artificial construct of the Albert Eden Local Board boundary, parks that were never there, but actually are not far away. And I just wonder about the cost of this, not just the financial cost, but the environmental costs. And I watched Chairman Haynes very closely when he was questioned about the environmental aspects. And even though he's a very passionate advocate for this retrofit of 2 sports fields and a local park into the Chamberlain Golf Course, it was the one question I picked up that he had difficulty with, and who wouldn't? There is going to be a significant environmental cost, not just in trees being cut down, but significant earthworks in that rather sensitive catchment that other members, including Member Brown, have noted. Then there is a political cost, but I guess people are willing to pay that. But it seems, given it's such a divisive issue, there needs to be, and seeing this has come before this committee of the governing body, the council needs to take a lead, I think, in finding a solution. A win-lose approach may have its benefits. Some will win and others will lose, but there will be a cost, and not just financial, not just environmental, but costs in dividing the community, which we should try as community leaders to avoid. Coming back to the demographic question again, though, the assumption is with white folks going down and Asians coming up, there's going to be less demand for golf. But it seems, I think it's quite unwise to use demographics in this sort of argument, especially ethnic demographics. The fact of the matter is golf is wildly popular amongst Asians and in Asia. And in fact, one of the defects, I think, in our provision of sports facilities is not enough driving ranges, particularly in the inner city, because they will be very, very popular, ironically, not necessarily so much with white folks, but with Asians, if overseas experience is anything to go by. So I don't think the council formally moving to note there's going to be a change from 48 and 41, particular figures that we can never really know, to formally move that is irrelevant and not helpful, and we should be focusing on the issue itself. I can't vote to predict what the percentage of the ethnic makeup of Auckland will be in 20 years' time. That's ridiculous. It's ridiculous that it's even on in the recommendation. So, Madam Chair, I can't vote for a business case that only looks at one option, because looking at one option means it's really a euphemism for the green light for one particular option. If there is a business case, the two options should be analysed in a business-like way, and we look at it and take a decision on that basis. In the meantime, I think this should be put on hold and further thought should be given before we go down a course which will be damaging in terms of community unity, but certainly damaging to the environment. So I can't support this at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Clow.
I don't want to speak until after the amendment's been dealt with, but I want to bring up a point of order. Haven't both of those, the mover and the seconder, spoken to the original motion, therefore they can't move an amendment? And if that doesn't work, then I can ask, isn't it a direct negative to a degree almost?
This is what some of the little...
So I'm asking two questions under point of order over the amendment.
No, and that is a good point of order. That's just what I've been checking with the staff, because the recommendation is, there's a presumption in Councillor Simpson's recommendation that it will go back to the local board for relitigation, which is not the process that we're envisaging here. It's down as an amendment. I thought it was just an addition, so it's not a substitution. It doesn't amend the recommendations. The recommendations stand as they stand, and then if councillors are of a mind to, they can vote to support this or not. But my advice is that it is possibly a flawed recommendation because it presumes the relitigation at the local board. So we're just seeking advice on that, and we'll clarify before we get to it.
In the wording up there, they've actually worded it as an amendment. It says an amendment.
Indeed. So we're just negotiating, as one often is. So I'll go to Councillor Fletcher while we just get clarification on the addition.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to everyone who's contributed to this debate. This is not an easy one. As somebody who has worked in both central government and local government, I think it really highlights where local government is put in such a bind, because we are a creature of statute, that we fall over ourselves often to find a way to comply with the statute and the processes that we can sometimes get the outcomes that we want. And in this case, I feel incredibly sorry that the local board, along with others in the area, we've known for a long time there is a shortage of all manner of things, because intensification has been happening for some decades now in central Auckland, and we know that we do need to grow the infrastructure that we have. This issue, however, it predates Ollie's, and I think the Ollie became an opportunity to try and advance and to fast track some of those requirements in terms of infrastructure. But if you step back for a moment, local government forces the abandoning of common sense at times. If you look at Auckland and you see the developments taking place and you see the intensification, particularly in the legacy Auckland City area, you begin to realise just how precious Chamberlain Park is as a space for all of Auckland. So if you take yourself out of your local board thinking or your sub-regional thinking and indeed into your regional councillor thinking, this is a very strategic piece of Auckland, let alone the ecological benefits that need to be preserved and enhanced and restored. That's why, going into the last election, I just hoped that we would have gone through our golf analysis and we would have gone through the sporting requirements and we would have come up in a measured way how we might come to address those requirements for Auckland. And so I reject so resoundingly, I hate the fact that this has become political, because common sense tells me this is just not a good thing to do from a heritage perspective, from an ecological perspective, and certainly for the future of Auckland and our children. It's not a good thing to do. This is going to become a much valued, precious piece of Auckland into the future. But that is not to deny the fact that the local board quite correctly want to enhance the amenity and the facilities that are available to Aucklanders. So it's been frustrating. I think the Ollie process has been frustrating. I have to say, I think some of the policy advice that we've received along the way has actually been quite frustrating. And I can tell you that it's been very frustrating for the community to oppose some of the stuff, because for anyone who's worked in any level of activism, you know that there's no big slush fund if you're not happy about something. If you actually want to go and challenge it, you have to go and fundraise and you have to put your money where your mouth is, where your heart is. And in my case, disclosure, I am not a golfer. Frankly, I couldn't give a toss about the golfing issues on this. The issue for me is what person in their right mind, with the growth that Auckland is experiencing, would go and cut up such an important and strategic piece of Auckland, knowing that we will never again be able to bring it back. You know, it's Pandora's box. Once you've cut it up, are you ever going to be able to recreate it? No. So to me, it has been right the way through, right going back beyond 3 years, the precautionary approach on this. Now, that is not to deny the local board their right to champion, their right to advocate for the sort of facilities and infrastructure that they want for their community. And I, at one level, I strongly support that. But at another and a greater level, if you like, this is morally wrong to even consider this. It's morally wrong to even think of throwing more officer money at more consultants and more reports and everything else when we know that it has a very high level of failure likely. Now today you're all sitting around here and you're worried that if you vote this down, it's going to compromise your ability to actually advocate for the Ollies in your community. And I understand that, I get it, but morally this is wrong. Our children and their children will not thank us for carving this up. And we will go down in a very expensive track of establishing, no, it shouldn't happen for a whole range of reasons. So why not actually let common sense work effectively today and say, no, let's go back to the drawing board and let's get this right. Let's give the community what it needs, but not at the expense long term of what the Greater Auckland region requires, in fact New Zealand requires. So I with great sadness, want to vote against this in its entirety and hope that we can actually support the local board in finding other ways to achieve community needs.
final speaker before we go to councillor Kathy Casey to... Oh, sorry, I thought yours was just the point of order.
Dealt with. What's happening?
Okay, koro.
So this is an addition. So this is an addition rather than an amendment. Yeah.
Yes.
Because it's an addition.
Because it's an addition, it can proceed on as it is written here. So it's not an amendment; it's an addition to C.
Is it a direct negative?
The way that it's written there, it's not a double negative.
Doesn't it need the permission of the mover and seconder? Yes. I don't give that permission.
That's right.
So that's gone.
Yep.
Good try, though.
No.
Hang on, we'll just... I think everyone's getting a little bit tired. We've got a long afternoon still to go. So there's two ways that this can be done. Is it could either have been as an addition to the recommendations, or we move the recommendations and then Councillor Simpson and Councillor Stewart put forward by way of an additional recommendation the fact that they don't want this to start until November. That's fine. It's not unusual. It's not unusual process at all. So we'll just deal with the normal recommendations and then you can put this, then put your recommendation.
Point of order, that is unusual, isn't it? To pass your resolutions and then someone else does another resolution.
Madam Chair, may I help? May I put a amendment up and that can be voted on first and then form part of the substantive and then we'll vote on the substantive.
So you want to do this as an amendment instead?
I just think that might be the easiest way.
I'm completely agnostic. We just need to get on. So
Okay,
I'm
point of order.
Yes.
Councillor Simpson and Councillor, she was halfway through her speech and then mentioned an amendment through it, and Councillor Stewart had already spoken and she's now speaking. You can't do that under standing orders.
So I've just checked with the staff. Councillor Simpson asked a question.
I think she was halfway through her speech, but
Nope.
what about Councillor Stewart then?
Oh, hang on. And this is the difficulty with the system we've got here. It doesn't actually save who's spoken. It just comes up with who's asked questions and who's next. I did note here, however, that Councillor Simpson was for. So I just need to, because you did ask a question, Councillor Simpson, then I think quite rightly, Councillor Close right, you did speak. And that's when you then raise the issue of the amendment. So if someone else wishes who hasn't spoken, Councillor Sayers hasn't spoken, I'm just saying. I'm saying it to Sayers. If you did want to take over Councillor Simpson's amendment, that's probably the most practical way forward. Otherwise, we could be here all afternoon.
Thank you for the opportunity, but I won't. But I do have, hopefully, the opportunity to speak the substantive.
Okay. Right, I'm just going to make a chair's call. So, Councillor Simpson, you've spoken. Would someone else like to put their name to Councillor Simpson's amendment? Otherwise, it disappears.
Maku.
Yes or no?
Maku.
So, okay. All right.
Point of order. Sorry,
yes.
Chair, look, and I hate points of order, but in regards to Member Wilcox putting his name forward, can I confirm then that he has taken the place of Member Kake in regards to this, because I just don't know whether in fact it can happen where he can substitute during the committee meeting, but I need clarification around that because I just think it's unfair in regards to what's happening now.
Okay. My understanding from our advisors is he is the direct substitute for Member Kake and he can do this. So we'll put in Member Wilcox as the mover and just to be on the safe side, Councillor Young as the seconder, seeing neither of them have spoken to this. So let's not get too carried away. I'm going to give Councillor Sayers, did you wish to speak?
If it's appropriate to the substantive, I guess. Is the timing okay, or, yeah, just, okay, well, thank you, Madam Chair. And I'd like to thank everybody who's participated in this debate. I came in with a very open mind, and it's been a most interesting afternoon. And, this is a local board's OLI. It's very, very important. It's key to them. And even though that local board probably knew there's a likelihood that this would be very controversial, they've pushed forward anyway. So I too would like to compliment the chair, Peter Haynes by name, for the energy and his contribution this afternoon in terms of helping my decision making. I do have to say, Madam Chair, that I do feel uncomfortable with the level of unaligned information we've received in the report. I've just found that quite confusing and difficult to kind of process and work through. I also have a concern with the lack of environmental and heritage information covered within the report. There will be environmental costs, there will be heritage costs that have been pointed out by other councillors and ISMB members around the table, and I think there will be a cost to the community as well, Madam Chair, if we press forward with this today. For myself, I'm uncomfortable, I'm not totally satisfied within myself about being able to make a decision in support of the recommendation as it stands. Not only is the local board split over this, but I hear around the debating chamber the two ward councillors themselves are split on the item. It seems to be, I don't want to, it's probably the wrong term, Madam Chair, but it's divisive. It's a divisive project, and I would hope that if this didn't succeed, which it may well in a few minutes, that the staff would be able to present an alternative solution that honoured and kept the green space that Auckland so desperately needs. I'm certainly not anti the local board advocating strongly, as they have, for the Ollies, and good on them. And they're standing up for what they hear that the community needs, and the majority of them voted for. But I just want to explain why at this point in time, Madam Chair, I'm probably not supportive of it. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Councillor Sayers. So I'm going to give Councillor Casey her chance to... Oh, Councillor Close, sorry, I'm not...
I do want to speak, but I just want to know, are we going to deal with the amendment first?
We are. I'm just giving people... Yeah. Do you want us... I'm trying to understand what your issue is here. Do you want the Member Wilcox and Member Young to speak to the amendment? It just seems to me that no one is actually wanting to speak to the amendment. So I'm just... If you would like us to just deal with it, we'll do it, and then we can go on to the...
Deal with it.
That's fine. So it's been moved and seconded. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, say no.
No.
No. Okay, it's lost.
Thank you. I'd
So,
like to speak.
that's done. We'll move on. I realise I probably need another cup of coffee.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And don't get me wrong.
Councillor Glow, would you like to speak now to the substantive?
Please don't get me wrong, Chair. I was not having a shot at you.
No,
it's just
I didn't feel like that at all.
This is a testy debate. It's really interesting when it comes to the Ollies. It's going to be interesting with other people are going to be speaking for or against their own Ollies. It'll be interesting, but I think pretty well everyone else is going to take a narrow view. I actually take this as a regional issue. I do know a little bit about New Zealand Golf's position on this. I was a good friend of Bill McGowan, who's the Chief Executive of New Zealand Golf for several years. He's deceased now, but in his time at New Zealand Golf, he tried very hard to get golf courses around the country to introduce 9-hole golf. And it didn't necessarily mean changing from 18 holes to 9 holes, but 9-hole golf, because golf was just, and it's continuing to plunge in popularity. And it's partly a time thing. People cannot afford a whole day to play golf. And so therefore the emphasis was to try and get people to move across to 9-hole golf to try and revitalise and keep the costs down for people coming along. Interestingly, which no one's, we're talking about ethnic makeup, etc., which is a bit strange. But if you look at A5, it says a reduction in rounds played at Chamberlain Golf Course from 82,000 to 50,000 over 16 years. That's a 40% drop in number of rounds played at Chamberlain Park. Now that pretty well reflects golf's sliding popularity around New Zealand. We've got too many golf courses. Latest in the news recently is a golf course called Formosa. It's struggling. It can't even afford to fix its sewage system. It's effectively shut down. The whole facility's shut down. Housing New Zealand is looking at Formosa as a housing estate. That may be one of the Huda urban development entities, but that is an indication of where golf's going. And what the local board is doing with this OLI is trying to revitalise that space and trying to revitalise, among other things, the golf. Councillor Lee talks about, yep, it's wonderful, we really need to have more driving ranges. I think maybe you didn't read the fine print, but there's going to be a driving range there. One of the things that, you know, and then I hear Councillor Walker talking about we're going to turn it into a wildlife sanctuary as well. I mean, we can't even afford the zoo across the road, let alone build another one over the other side of the road. I can't understand. So I'm going to implore councillors to please get behind this. This is a sensible thing. This is just a business case looking at it. This is not the final decision. If you're going to be serious about being supportive of all the OLIs and trying to be pat and look after your comrades and all that sort of stuff, you can't just go and dog this one when it just happens to not suit or it happens to be part of a mayoral election campaign. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clow. Now, before I seat anybody else, I've got Councillor Bartley speaking to the substantive, and I think that might be it. And then Councillor Casey will close. Councillor Bartley.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and everybody that's spoken to this. I'm speaking in support of the substantive because it is about the local board OLI. It's about the best use of our assets for the future. Golf will still be played there, and then there's going to be access to others to use it for other uses. I can relate to the local board's need for sports fields, given that in my ward, in particular in Glen Innes, we don't have any sports fields. So this is one way that the Albert Eden local board can get a sports field, and I'm going to support that. I am concerned about the comments and generalisations and the mention of demographics and ethnicities in regards to sports and who could possibly end up playing these sports. So I just wanted to add that 2 cents to this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bartley, and I think Koro and I just noted up here, I think that probably the demographic statement is one we would need to look at again. I think Member Brown made the point really well, and it's possibly something we don't need to necessarily include in our recommendations.
Madam Chair, point of clarification, and I apologise profusely because I'm not feeling especially well today, but I wanted to be here. At what point are you going to take the amendment? I just need to... Madam Chair, I missed it entirely. Maybe it's I'm not well, but could you...
I was really clear, Councillor. I said, Councillor Clow called a point of order. I said, do you want us to do it now? We said yes. I said, we're voting on the amendment. No one called a division. I said, all those in favour, please say aye. And everyone voted. I'm sorry, Councillor, we can't revisit.
Well, point of order, Chair.
Yes.
Just to clarify, before that vote on the amendment was taken, I assume that there was a vote on a closure to pass it, that we would close the debate to have the vote on that amendment at that point. If there wasn't a vote on the closure, I mean, a number of us were, frankly, I feel a bit blindsided.
No, there was no closure motion required because we'd had 3 for, 3 against, and I also didn't have anyone waiting to speak. I had no more speakers. Everyone who had put their hand up to speak had spoken. Councillor Darby chose not to take his speaking turn, so with the greatest of respect, it was entirely appropriate to put the amendment to allow the speaking turns to be completed with regard to the substantive, and now to allow Councillor Kathy Casey to close the motion. I have two exceedingly tough women on my right who check standing orders every step of the way, and we have made sure that we've followed standing orders scrupulously. Councillor Casey, would you care to close the debate?
Well, there's just one comment I'd like to make, and that is several councillors mentioned the politics around this decision. As ward councillor, I haven't made any statement about Chamberlain Park. Not any statement anywhere. So the politics of this decision is certainly not coming from this ward councillor. On the other hand, I did open the Herald to find that a wannabe mayor and his wannabe deputy mayor made their launch of their campaign Chamberlain Park. Enough said.
So just to be, people are very clear, we're putting the recommendation, it's been moved by Councillor Casey, seconded by Councillor Cooper. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? No. And you'd like, would have been useful to have called one councillor. Right, we'll do it again by division. Can I just to make things work well, it would be, well, we can actually do a division if people are desperate for it. It's not illegal. But it would be, councillors, we've got a long afternoon ahead of us. If you do want a division, can you please call it immediately? It's a bit rude to do it after the vote.
Chair, I apologise today, but I've got really blocked ears and I'm struggling to hear, and so I was wanting to make sure if there was an overwhelming view that was the case.
Division for item 11, Councillor House.
Aye.
Councillor Bartley.
For.
Member Wilcox. Member Brown.
No.
Councillor Casey.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Cashmore.
Yes.
Councillor Clow.
Yes.
Councillor Collins.
No, it's not here.
Oh, sorry, apologies. Councillor Cooper. Councillor Darby. Councillor Filipina.
Aye.
Councillor Fletcher.
No.
Councillor Hills.
Aye.
Councillor Mike Lee.
No.
Councillor Newman.
Well, I'm an aye with the exception of A Roman numeral 2, 6, 7, and no on B.
That's all right. Councillor Sayers.
No.
Councillor Simpson.
Yes, but no on B. Abstain, sorry, but no on B.
Abstain. You'll abstain. All right. Councillor Stewart.
No.
Sir John Walker.
What's that? No.
4.
Four. Okay.
Councillor Wayne Walker. Councillor Watson.
Yes.
Councillor Young. No. 6 carried. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Carried. 13 to 7.